Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Harry Jackson Show. I am your host, Harry Jackson, and we've got a great program for you here today. Today is Faith and Finance Day, and in the second segment of the program, we'll be talking about cybersecurity. What does that mean to you? Using credit cards and to rebuild credit. I think a lot of us in this economy need to understand how to rebuild, but also how to protect what we have by cyber security. Our guest in that segment is going to be Beverly Herzog, credit card expert, and that is going to be one of the things you won't want to miss. Probably one of the most important segments and practical we're going to do today. And I need for you to reach out at Bishop Harry, hashtag The Harry Jackson Show. And I want you to talk to me about whether somebody should be able to buy a computer on minimum wage. Is that an absolute necessity today, or is it not? At Bishop Harry, hashtag The Harry Jackson Show. We'll respond to you on the air. Should somebody be able to buy a computer who's on minimum wage? Is that a necessity of life today or not? Just think about it. I think it will put into perspective a little bit of the arguments that we have. But first, we have 5 stories that we want to weigh in. I'm joined in the studio by Dr. Rudy DePass, and PhD in economics, and Dr. David Parlett. We're not so sure what he's an expert on, except that he is a co-host with me almost every day. That counts for something, right? And yeah. So they're going to weigh in with me on these 5 things. Number 1, the Affordable Care Act is going to give a reprieve for small businesses until 2016. And we're going to talk in more detail about these issues. But companies that have 100 workers or more are going to get a different kind of 1-year grace than the smaller ones. The smaller ones can just push it back all the way and skip out on another year. That's important to me. We'll talk more about it because some of the ventures that we run, such as our daycare and early childhood development center, has enough employees that had we been forced to start this coming year, there would have been a $10,000 a month increase in our bottom line, and we're not dealing with that many employees. We're under 50. It's a service. It is a ministry, and that means somebody who's going to have to pay for it, or you got to rearrange hours, and so we're going to talk about that. Number 2 story, Art to the rescue in Detroit, or rescued Art in Detroit. Who is Art anyway? No, we're talking about fine art in the city of Detroit. Detroit is saying that it's looking at the value of art, and USA Today tells us that broke Detroit is wondering whether they should make sure that they have a system and a way to get their art back or to protect their art or for people to pay the equivalent of the debts that the art would pay. And we'll talk about whether that is right, wrong, or just artistic. Number 3, what is the value of minimum wage, or what's in a wage? And we want to go through, and we realize some of this may take us a minute, some of our minimum wage levels around the nation. And the bottom line for you today is that there's nothing minimum about minimum wage. What do you mean? Well, we know it's low, but the question really is there any uniformity? New Hampshire, $7.25 minimum wage. And I've been to New Hampshire, much more rural than many of other states. Massachusetts, $8. Rhode Island, $8. Connecticut, $8.70. New Jersey, $8.25. Also, D.C., $8.25. And then in Georgia, great state of Georgia, $5.15. That is the minimum of the minimum of the minimum wage. And can you buy a computer on it? That's my question. At Bishop Harry, hashtag Harry Jackson Show, should you be able to buy a computer as a minimum benefit for working full time out there in the marketplace? Is that the kind of thing that we're giving minimum wages for? We know we want food, shelter. We know we want to get clothing and all those wonderful things. How minimum should minimum wage be? I know my opinion. What about your opinion? And fourth story today is HBCUs to re-examine their missions. And we're going to have Dr. DePass talk to us a little bit about the value historically of historic black colleges. And there's something that we need to really look at during Black History Month. Is it really necessary anymore? If so, should we have it? And then we've got all kinds of folk. I was in a meeting with someone who was talking about how important these HBCUs were. And I think we are going to weigh in their fifth and final story. If I had a drum roll, I'd play it for you now. Yeah. We got one from the studio. Drum roll. Do you hear it? Giraffe drama in Denmark. They did the unthinkable thing. They took a young giraffe and fed it to the other animals, and now there is an outraged populace in Denmark saying cruelty to animals, don't appreciate animal life. On the other hand, is there an equity in their sense of value of life? Once again, the question is human life versus animal life versus real life. And we don't know. It seems to me that the biblical value of life and the idea that people should be humane to animals all should flow in some kind of continuum, but many of us are out of balance about those. So those are the 5 things we're going to talk about. Affordable Care Act, reprieve, rescue of art in Detroit, minimum wage is not so minimum around the nation, historic black colleges, we need to re-examine their mission, yay or nay, and giraffe drama. Should every long-necked giraffe be strangled before he gets to the age of 8? And that is not exactly the headline, but that is my headline today. Dave Parlett, welcome back to the program.
Yes, sir. Good to be with you.
What are you an expert in?
There's so many things my wife tells me at home, and
that is a creative answer. For a moment, thought I was going to hear the ramblings of a twisted mind, and say my wife calls me an expert, and you're going to list them all out. But that's good, sir. Dr. Rudy DePass, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great, sir.
We're going to draw upon your economic expertise first. And that is ACA, Affordable Care Act, the reprieve, giving smaller companies 1 more year to make the changes. Employers with 50 to 99 employees will be given until 2016 to offer health insurance. I spoke on Roland Martin the other day. I talked about increasing wages. And he asked how many employees that we have. I said 40 with our daycare and child development center, but it truly is 50. And 50 is in that number range where some forced changes would happen. Also, with many insurance policies, they have a minimum number of your employees that have to be covered under their coverage. In other words, their deal with you is that you're going to cover at a certain percentage, let's say 70% of all the employees on your staff. So there's a double bind there. There is not just what Affordable Care calls for, but some of your more reasonable discounts. And I spent about 4 hours last week in conference calls going back and forth over our situation, trying to figure out how we're going to be able to pay $10,000 more a month without raising the cost of the services that we give in a competitive market. What do you say about these employers' reprieves? Is this going to be helpful or not in your thinking?
Bishop, I think it's going to be helpful. I think that a lot of these modifications and adjustments that we see in the Affordable Care Act are items that could have been implemented from the beginning. But I think because the Republicans gave the president such a hard time, he was unyielding on them. So I think now the rubber hits the road. He finds out that you need to make these adjustments. And I think that it's going to be good because it's kind of like the only way it's going to make it work.
Now, Doctor, we'll excuse you for bashing the Republicans. Some of my best friends are Republicans.
Same here.
Yeah. But yeah, it is, I think, to your point, and then we'll come back and unpack this a little bit more, the obstructionist view of things or the typecasting as obstructionist is devaluing the Republican brand, theme we've been talking about over time. As a social conservative, someone who's for marriage, for family, etc., it troubles me that the folk who are trying to carry the banner for some of my most valued issues want to keep walking through the woods and stepping in the refuge. They're not really being cognizant of the ramification at times of posturing. And so what do you think, Dave Parlett, in a word, yes or no? Rudy, yes or no? Dr. DePass, is it realistic at this time, Ted Cruz aside, that Affordable Care Act is shut down or totally repealed by Congress right now? Yes or no?
I think they should revisit this. So
I didn't
the answer
ask
is
you
yes.
that. Oh, you think it's realistic? Okay. You, Dr. DePass, you think it's realistic?
Definitely should not be repealed. It should be modified to work effectively.
So at this point, I think you're saying no, it's not really realistic to do it now with the current balance of power, even though the Republicans keep trying. And then with you, Dave Parlett, you're saying it's realistic to actually try to shut it down totally. And I say that until recently, we haven't had plans that are alternatives. And in the civil rights movement, for example, you know, there were advocates of nonviolence, there are advocates of violence, there are all kinds of people who are going at this thing in different ways, and they went toward the same goal. I was listening to Ted Cruz himself talk about the fact that, yes, he was for shutting down Obamacare, but he expected others to also take a more interventionist kind of approach with creative and more detailed alternatives, and then the full field of opposition would have been there. Think about it this way. Forcing the hand of the powers that be to take action as opposed to bringing on just a stalemate might have been more strategic. I hope I'm not talking over anyone's head that's out there listening to us today. I don't think the Affordable Care Act is best. I think exactly what Dr. DePass said, not about the Republicans, but rather about the fact that these kinds of changes and things that would make this act better should have been somehow negotiated into the woof and war for the fabric of the program from the beginning. Several tweets. Kenny Anderson tweets, why make an effort to get off welfare if welfare pays more than minimum wage jobs in, in B5 states? 35. B35? Oh, in 35 states. 35 states. Okay, our producer is writing in hieroglyphics. It's all right. We'll forgive her for that. Well, the tweet is really right. I mean, if somebody's going to pay you, and I can have a BlackBerry, a Blueberry, and an iPhone, and a computer. Also, NCPA says black teenage unemployment rate is 38%, and President Obama wants a higher minimum wage. Whoop. Now, that is NCPA, a powerful statement, and the answer is let's get more jobs for these kinds of people. Teenagers, entry-level people are the ones using minimum wage. We have Beverly Herzog right after the break, credit card expert. She's going to lay hands on your credit card and command them to be healed. Oh, that's the wrong show. We'll be back in just a moment on the Harry Jackson Show. You don't want to miss it. Stay tuned.
With today's Faith to Action commentary, here's Janet Porter.
A straitjacket. That's how the Republican National Committee described the Common Core curriculum in their resolution against it. The RNC resolution calls Common Core an inappropriate overreach to standardize and control the education of our children. It further says, we reject the collection and sharing of personal student data for any non-educational purpose without prior written parental consent, and rejects the Common Core plan, which creates and fits the country with a nationwide straitjacket on academic freedom and achievement. And the RNC resolution is catching on. County Republican parties like Cincinnati's Hamilton County and others are passing their own resolutions against Common Core. More and more agree Common Core is rotten to the core.
Visit f2a.org for more commentaries and action steps, along with news, links, and much more for your state. Go to f2a.org.
At my family's favorite ice cream chain, well, you know the one where you can choose your favorite ingredients and then they mix all those incredible flavors together right in front of you. Well, as they create your ice cream masterpiece, you can choose one of three sizes: the I really like it, or the small size, the I love it a lot, or the medium, and the I gotta have it, or, well, you guessed it, the large size. And as we order, my kids and I think we need the gotta have it size, and my wife says, come on, do you really need it? It got me thinking, though, about my relationship with God's Son. Do I like Him? Do I love Him? Or have I got to have Him? And maybe that's where you are right now. Your relationship with Jesus is just that. It's your relationship. Have you been holding back and just tasting Jesus? Or do you want to find out more by stepping out and saying, I've got to have you? To find out more about the life that Jesus has for you, call 888-NEED-HIM. That's 888-NEED-HIM. Or chat with us live at needhim.org.
Imagine if God had a voicemail. Thank you for calling my Father's house. Please listen carefully, for our options have changed. Press 1 for request, press 2 for Thanksgiving, press 3 for complaints, press 4 for all other inquiries. What about this one? I'm sorry, all of our agents are busy assisting other customers at this time. Please stay on the line and your call will be answered in the order it was received. Your current wait time is greater than 3 minutes. Then finally, thank you for calling Glory Customer Service. Our records indicate that you've already contacted us regarding this issue. Please wait at least 24 hours for our support team to get back with you and have your ticket number available. This will help our representatives serve you better. I'm grateful that God loves us so much that He never puts us on hold and we never get an answering machine or voicemail. With a heart for the urban family, I'm today's urban woman, Tony Johnson. Connect with us at urbanfamilytalk.com.
Welcome back to the Harry Jackson Show. You just heard that God never puts us on hold, but if you are out reaching out to a credit card company, more than likely you're going to have a wait, especially if you're checking some of the fine lines in the benefits. In just a moment, we're going to listen to and hear from cybersecurity expert Beverly Herzog, and we're going to learn some amazing things about using credit cards, 7 great strategies. But first, Dave Parlette's going to say good morning.
Oh, man, we got to say good morning to Arkansas. And today we're broadcasting live on KNLL. That's down there at 90.5 in Nashville City. That's Nashville, Arkansas.
Make it plain, brother, as they say in church. Make it plain.
That's right, Nashville, Arkansas. Courtesy of American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk. Nashville is the home to the first Dillard's department store, where William Dillard began his business, and also it's the world's largest dinosaur trackway, is discovered near Nashville. They believe over 100 million years ago, where the dinosaurs ruled and they walked.
Well, we're going to have to ask somebody to reach out and tweet us from this wonderful city, Nashville, And I just want to know what a dinosaur, what was it?
A dinosaur trackway.
No, they weren't betting on dinosaurs back then, were they?
Really?
I don't think
It's
so.
a speedway.
Somebody got to help me out. You got to help me. I want to understand. So at Bishop Harry, hashtag the Harry Jackson Show, we want to hear from you in Nashville, Arkansas. Also, this coming weekend, we're going to be at Dominion Church in the greater Memphis area in West Memphis, Arkansas. And many of you are within reach of that. And you can reach out on the web and find out the coordinates of dominionchurch.org in West Memphis, Arkansas. And this morning we have Beverly Herzog, credit card expert. And she's nationally recognized in this area. And she runs a popular card blog on her website and has co-authored 2 books. The Complete Idiot's Guide to Person-to-Person Lending and Simple Numbers, Straight Talk Big, and then the word profits. She lives in Johns Creek, Georgia. I think I just messed up her titles. Beverly, help me out. What are the titles of the book that you have written?
Okay, well, actually, Harry, you did great. I have written those 2 books. My most current book is Confessions of a Credit Junkie, Everything You Need to Know to Avoid the Mistakes That I Made. So that's my new one. But other than that, you did fantastic. Great.
Confessions of a Credit Junkie. It sounds like I got to get that book right away. I got to say, I resemble that remark. So we're very, very thankful for having you with us, and thank you for the hard work you've done. Let's jump right into what is the most distinguishing aspect of your work before us, and that is 7 simple strategies to take back your credit life. Why don't you just start with strategy number 1, and we can see how many we can get through in the next few minutes. Ma'am, you have the floor.
Okay, well, if someone is trying to rebuild credit, and my goodness, I hear from consumers every day asking me this very question: how do I rebuild credit? Because during the recession, so many people got in trouble, not just from being irresponsible, but also because the unemployment rate is so high, and so many things. Life just gets really messy sometimes, right? So if someone is really trying to rebuild credit, one thing that they can do if they can't get approved for an unsecured credit card is apply for a secured credit card. And this is a great way to rebuild credit.
Now, what is secured credit card? Can you break that down a little bit for our audience?
Sure. A secured credit card looks exactly like an unsecured card. The only difference is that with a secured card, you have to put down a deposit in a bank account, and this secures the card. And you'll get the money back at the end of the time period that you're going to have it. It usually takes about 12 to 18 months to build your score up, unless it's really, really, really bad. But I give that as kind of a guideline, about 12 to 18 months of responsible use with a secured card. And you get a credit card. You're actually using credit, okay? You're not pulling from the money that you have in your account. This is a real credit card. But the reason that you put down the deposit is because it reduces the risk for the credit card company. So this is a way for them to give you a chance to get a credit card and rebuild your credit, and it minimizes their risk. So that's how that works. But you do get the deposit back when you graduate up to an unsecured card.
I love it because some of the people who are listening to us, we talked about Affordable Care before, have issues, as I did, in terms of I had a catastrophic illness, 7.5 hours surgery, near-death experience with cancer. And so if you're getting back on your feet, this is great. Let's go on to strategy number 2.
Okay, one thing that's very important to do is to avoid applying for a lot of cards at one time. The background from my book, Confessions of a Credit Junkie, this is the one thing that led to my credit downfall when I was young. I had just gotten out of college, was making good money. I didn't grow up with money, and this was the first time in my life I actually had some money, and I started getting all of these credit card offers. and they would tell me how great I was, on the envelope. You're special. You deserve this. And then I started thinking, yes, I do. So I applied for all these cards, maxed them out. I was too young and inexperienced to understand how to go about this in a better way. So I encourage people, don't apply for more than one card at one time. I don't care what the sign-up bonus is. Get a card if you need that type of card. I like to tell people, if you're responsible and you pay your bill off every single month, it's okay to have a rewards card because those APRs are a little bit higher. But if you are a person that carries a balance, stay away from credit cards if you possibly can.
That makes a lot of sense. So every time someone applies, they're going to get points knocked off their credit score, and it can throw them down. Great. What is your next strategy?
Okay,
Yes.
Keep a low balance on your credit card. Now, this is something that everyone can do no matter what your credit score. Let's say that you want to refinance your mortgage. Keep a low balance, and the standard is 30%, but I'll give you an insider tip here. Keep it around 10% of your total limit, and this means the amount of credit you've used compared to the amount of credit you have available. So let's say, just for an example, you have a $1,000 credit limit. Keep your balance around $100, okay? And the FICO score is really big on the amount of credit you still have available. It's called a utilization ratio. If you keep that number low, you're going to maximize that part of the credit score, and that's going to help boost your score a little.
Wow, that is good. That's something I'm sure a lot of folks don't know anything about. This is excellent, excellent material. Let's go on to strategy number 4. We're pacing ourselves really
all right.
well.
Pay your balance off by the due date every month. Oh my goodness, this is so important.
Goodness.
And this led to my downfall years ago too. I wasn't paying my balance by the due date because I wasn't tracking my spending, and that's kind of that's a big part of it. You really have to track your spending so you know how much you have in your balance, so that you're sure you can still pay that in full. Your payment history, and that's paying on time, is 35% of your credit score. So, if you keep low balances and pay on time, you're hitting about 65% of the score right there. So that's good.
Wow, that is really important. Sounds like to me. How about strategy number 5?
Number 5, don't close unused credit accounts. Now, this is open a little bit about, for debate if you've got a big annual fee. But in general, closing a credit card can lower your credit score because a few minutes ago I talked about your available credit and keeping a low ratio. Well, if you close a credit card, you lose that available credit that you have on that card, and that can make your score go down. And it's counterintuitive. I mean, most people are surprised to hear this because you would think that shows great discipline to close a credit card account, but the score wants to know that you have lots of credit available and that you don't use it. So that's the psychology behind that.
No, and that's an interesting point. It almost sounds like what somebody used to tell me, that banks want to work most with people who really don't need money. And
yes, it's ironic, isn't it? Yes, that's exactly
really
kind of how it is. But you can have a very low income and have a very high score. It's all playing the game properly and being very responsible.
Well, and that's great to hear because there could come those unforeseeable emergencies like we've already discussed, a layoff, other problems, the health issues that I've faced one time. Fortunately, they corrected this. The insurance company sent me a bill for $100,000, I should say, the hospital. And
oh, my goodness.
I'm dealing with, I've got 4 surgical procedures I had to have to set me up for this major procedure. And the insurance company is going round and round in circles. The other day we had again, insurance-related issue with my wife, who is recovering also from a kind of blood cancer, and the copay on her medicine. Yeah, thank God for God's grace because we're both doing very well now.
Good.
But the
That's
copay,
wonderful to hear. And I talk to people often who have dealt with a major health issue, and it really, really messes with your credit. It's just, it can be very devastating.
It can if you got to cover, but also to the point of why do we have credit in the first place? Perhaps we have some credit in order to swing, to cover, to help in emergencies, and that credit rating obviously is reflecting your capacity to spring back, bounce back, and maybe that should be our mindset more, that we've got credit available for emergencies, rainy days, absolute dire things, not to live on the credit card. Would you say that's a good summary?
I mean, that's it in a nutshell. You summed it up perfectly. And I also recommend that people have a low interest APR credit card in your back pocket just for emergencies, just in case. Like I have to get a new roof, and it's going to be difficult to pay for. And if I have to use that low interest card to pay it off over the course of 2 or 3 months, I won't be devastated financially. So I just think, it's good to have something like that. And also I want to point out that if you've got a great credit score, this can help you save money on health insurance, life insurance. You'll get a better deal on a mortgage. You'll save money if you have to get a new car and you need to get a loan. So, it really kind of it enhances your life and saves you money, in many other areas if you've got a good credit score. So that's the thing to keep in mind. That's one reason why it's important.
Wow, these are powerful things. Strategy number 6. What is that, my friend?
I'm sorry. Could you repeat the question?
Strategy number 6 on
number
your
6.
list.
Okay, I'm sorry. Become an authorized user. This is something that parents often do with their kids, but adults can use this as well. If you're married and one of you has bad credit, you can become an authorized user on your spouse's credit card if they have great credit and you have a good marriage and you trust each other, you can definitely develop some credit that way. So that's an option for you. And another one that's very similar to that, number 7, is get a cosigner. This is something that another thing that parents often do with their kids. I suggest that anyone that does this proceed very carefully, because I've seen this ruin relationships. I throw it out there because it is another option, but be very careful and have a heart-to-heart talk with whomever is going to be your cosigner, whether, it's a parent and child or whether it's spouses or you're just trying to do something nice for a friend. Just be very careful how you proceed with that.
Well, that is very powerful. These 7 points were really, really excellent. Very clear, pithy, helpful. And folks, you're listening to the author of the book, Confessions of a Credit Card Junkie. Everything you need to know about or how to avoid mistakes. Where else can they reach you? We've got about 30 seconds left. Can you give us...
I am at BeverlyHarzog.com. That's HARZOG. I write a blog. My goal in life is to help people stay out of trouble with their cards. I also have a ranked list of secured credit cards, the most comprehensive list on the internet. So,
wow.
Yes, and anyone can contact me and ask me for a card review, and I'll be happy to do it for them.
Well, Beverly, you are a excellent guest. We wish you well. We also wish everyone here the ability to reach out. She mentioned Beverly Harzog. That's spelled HARZOG.com, BeverlyHarzog.com. It would be great to go to her website. In the final segment coming up, this is Faith and Finance Day. We're going to take a little bit of time to talk a little bit more about the Affordable Care Reprieve and historic black colleges. Really, are they worth it anymore? Is there a place for these institutions anymore? And finally, minimum wage. Should someone on the minimum wage be allowed to get a computer? Is that what we're figuring in? You can reach out and tweet us at Bishop Harry, hashtag The Harry Jackson Show, and we'll respond to you on the air. We'll be right back. Make sure that you don't touch that dial. You're listening to The Harry Jackson Show.
We've all seen the massive cables that hold up gigantic suspension bridges. We wonder how anything could be so strong. Actually, each of those cables is made from thousands of tiny cables wound together to produce something of amazing strength. Habits in our life are like those tiny cables. Every action, whether good or bad, contributes to strengthening a habit in our life. Bad habits become very hard to break, while good habits can withstand any temptation. As Solomon wrote, a threefold cord is not quickly broken. Make sure the cord you are weaving is one that will protect you and not one that will pull you down. This is David Jeremiah, encouraging you to get on the road to new life. Discover God's good habits on Route 66.
Route 66, driving the word home. Log on to Route66Life.com. Start your journey home today.
What separates humans from animals is more than just a matter of anatomy or brain power or opposable thumbs. Dr. Tony Evans explains that it's something far more special as he takes us to Genesis chapter 1 for the alternative view.
Verse 26, let us make man in our image. An image is a mirror. You go to the mirror in the morning and you see your image flash back at you from the mirror. It is an image. The flowers weren't asked to do this, weren't created this way. The beasts weren't created this way. The fish weren't created this way. Only man was created with the capacity to mirror God. Everything else is a validation of God, but only man, male and female, were created to mirror God. So powerful is this principle. The scriptures refer to you and me as Elohims with a small e, because we're supposed to mirror. We Elohim Junior. That's why he made you a tripart being, body, soul, and spirit. I'm supposed to mirror the divine in history. We're not God, the big E. That's to think more highly of yourself than you ought to think. But with a little e, we're supposed to mirror the divine as part of his born-again new creation. We're supposed to mirror him because we have his image stamped on us. We have the capacity as part of the new creation to mirror him.
The many different names used for God in the Bible each have meaning, and each one describes a different aspect of his character. Learn more about them in Dr. Evans' new book, The Power of God's Names. Visit TonyEvans.org today to get the details and make your request. That's TonyEvans.org. You've been listening to The Alternative View.
Welcome back to the Harry Jackson Show. I'm your host, Harry Jackson, joined in the studio by a rowdy crowd. Dr. Rudy DePass is here with us, and he's got a lot of opinions. We're going to hear some of them. And David Barlett. And Dave, we're trying to kind of keep him down. He's getting riled up here in the studio.
That's right. Because listen to that last guest, I realized what I'm an expert in, Bishop. I'm an expert in paying my bills on time.
Well, that's good. That will put you certainly in the minority of the people listening, because the stats say most Americans are over-leveraged to the hilt, right? They're over-leveraged, overweight, overworked, and tired out. I hope that doesn't describe you who are listening today, that you want to get under-leveraged, underweight. Well, maybe not underweight, but on time. We want to be healthy. Well, Beverly Herzog just told us 7 ways to restore our credit, and I think they were great. She said get a secured credit card as a stopgap. Avoid applying for lots of cards at one time. She told us to keep a low balance on your credit card. She said pay off the balance by the due date, as Pastor Parlett, Dr. Parlett said. Every month, pay that bill. And strategy 5, don't close unused credit cards. That was one that surprised me a little bit. Strategy 6, become an authorized user. In other words, let somebody who needs credit get on somebody else's card, build up their credit in a sense, and there's a protection there. And she said, watch out that it doesn't ruin family relationships And then 7, get a cosigner. Again, similar cautions, warnings, and opportunities. We got a lot of things to talk about now. I want to go back to the Affordable Care Act reprieve just for a moment. And if we're going to give you a list of what we're going to get to, I think we're going to look at the historic black colleges, examining their mission last for Black History Month, and then the minimum wage, the kind of things we should get and allow people to get. Are we really holding people in bondage if we're basically saying to them, if you want to better yourself, you can't get a computer or you can't have access to the kind of media that makes things happen, rock and roll in our culture today? What about the Affordable Care Act? Aren't we at a point that folks should let up, Dr. DePass, on opposing, resisting, slowing it down? Should we accept the fact that it's a law of the land and try to ease the implementation of it or not? Or should people just hold fast to their guns, let the 2014 election cycle play out everything? What say you?
Well, Bishop, I think that the Affordable Care Act, actually the framework for it came from the Heritage Foundation, which holds the views of many people who oppose it. It worked in Massachusetts, and I think there's a need for it. People feel there's a need for it today. I think that's those people who had, original ailments that they couldn't have covered. I think
pre-existing conditions.
Yeah, I think those people, for example, beg for the need for it. So I think we need something. So the question is, those who oppose it don't seem to have a workable alternative other than just to oppose it. So I think just to do away with it, as Pastor Dave might suggest, I think we'd leave a void there and we have to start from scratch again. I think there has some elements that's workable. I just think that the Congress needs to work together on it and make it work. And I think that it will be a blessing to the nation.
All right, I got to ask you one thing. You said the Heritage Foundation studies came up with or created the Affordable Care Act. Somebody must be rolling over in their grave right now because the Heritage Foundation is conservative, and Ted Cruz, the mastermind of the conservative opposition against this thing, would say that it's government taking over and big government gone to seed. Explain this Heritage Foundation connection.
Well, I think that the framework for the Affordable Care Act, that especially was launched in Massachusetts first, came from Heritage, as well as the one that we have for the federal government. So I think that when you attach to the Affordable Care Act the name Obama, then obviously it falls apart for as far as the Heritage is concerned. They don't like that particular component of it, I think.
So their dislike of Obama has made them take back their own idea?
I think so.
Well, that's an interesting presupposition. Dave Prahlad, Romney Care, many people said the problem in the debates when Romney was going after President Obama about the health care issues is that it was tantamount to the political pot calling the kettle black, that you've got one government subsidized system originator on the basis of extreme nuance, which it means the average person can't tell anything different, saying mine is not bad, his is bad. And Obama's trying to say, I was just trying to be like you when I grew up. What say you?
Well, we heard that it was not working in Massachusetts for a while, but they've turned it around, and I think some of the changes that we're making, I'm particularly happy even what the president's doing right now in giving a reprieve from these prerequisites of saying now you got to pay for your employees. I'm glad he's backing these things up. I'm sure they did the same thing in Massachusetts.
Well, it really comes to the point of, can these guys play along with each other in the sandbox? Will they, if they were reverting to kindergarten grading system, would they have passed kindergarten, Republicans and Democrats, in terms of basic communication and some things we teach at our daycare? Be kind to one another. Say thank you. And I'm being a little bit facetious, but I'm not sure that any progress is going to be made before the election. No, I am sure. No progress is made before the election. I'm not so sure much progress will be made before the 2016 election for president. And therefore, do people suffer? That's a rhetorical question. I'm going to assume the answer is yes, people will suffer, and the politicians will posture, and we will have politics as usual. And I want to say it's a shame. What about minimum wage? We're asking people to tweet at Bishop Harry, hashtag The Harry Jackson Show. We'll respond to you on the air. Should someone making minimum wage in these United States be empowered to own things like a computer? I mean, is that what we're paying for? David Perlette, what's your opinion?
No, really, minimum wage is for the young, the kids. It's for them to get a start in life, to understand how to work hard, how to be responsible, and then you work your way up from there. So it's not going to pay all. Minimum wage is not going to pay all your bills. It's not going to pay the electric, the food, the gas, the car, the insurances, and buy computers and internet and on and on and on. So it's just a beginning point to move on from going up.
But is that an excuse, Dr. DePass?
Well, I mean, Pastor Dave, look at on minimum wage. How can people pay their rent? How can a man support his family? They can.
I don't think you can.
They cannot. Okay, so we do have a problem with the minimum wage, and so the question is, there's a trade-off, and secondly, we like to see people off a food stamp, and so if sometimes, I mean, many of the people on food stamp now are people who are working regular jobs and just don't have enough money to meet basic, needs for that.
We got it. Dave Perlette, what do you say?
Well, I'm even thinking of this tweet that we got in earlier. Says, why get off welfare if welfare pays more than our minimum wage? And so people will resort to welfare if the minimum wage is too low. So again, I just go back to my talking point that minimum wage is just a stepping stone. So for those who can only handle those sorts of jobs, unfortunately, you're going to need 2 minimum wage jobs.
Well, I'm hoping welfare go up to $100,000 a year so I can qualify. I'm sorry, I had to put that in there. But Dave Perlette, that is great. Rudy DePass, are you saying then that some of the guys who can't get other jobs, they need this minimum wage? Dave is saying, let them get a better job. Let them work at something else. We're not supporting people at the low end to stay at the low end. And you say what to his?
Well, I just think if jobs were available, that would be I would buy that argument myself. But the problem is that jobs for many of these people just aren't there, and so therefore, what do we do in the meantime? The president says the economy is picking up, and so the jobs will become available. So hopefully, in the near term, more jobs will be available. Fewer people will have to be contending with this problem.
Well, that brings us back to yesterday's program. We talked about, wanted you to tweet us whether we should give credit to President Obama for a 6.6% unemployment rate, even though many people have given up on trying to get a job. But there are a whole bunch of folk who would love to shift careers, get out of minimum wage. There's no bridge of job change or training that is realistic. This foolish talk, and I'm going to call it that judgmentally, this foolish talk that green jobs are going to somehow materialize out of the ozone because we have less carbon emissions. I'm being very sarcastic with that. That's not a true statement. Is fallacious, erroneous, and irresponsible thinking. And we find that Solyndra and other companies, to the hundreds of millions of dollars, have been given government grants. They didn't work. So let's transition to something more positive. historic black colleges, should they still be supported here in Black History Month, the great month of February, or has their day ended? What's a great Atlanta school, along with Spelman for women, Morehouse. I was in a room with a guy talking about Morehouse this. Morehouse was the first black this, and Morehouse was the first black that. Well, besides being a spiritual and moral cesspool, I'm understanding Atlanta is becoming degenerate. Oh, yes. When I say that, that's a real challenge. That place has a lot of lifestyle issues. Are we financing a ethnocentric, I'll say this, and I mean this really, and it sounds offensive, tweet me, call me if you want to, but are we supposed to finance a place that has lower academic standards, lower moral standards, and is a haven for people who want to be segregated voluntarily? Or if you see those things as a primer for development for people who can't be developed other places, a place where morality can be trained, I guess, depending on how you take a snapshot and interpret where they are today, will determine whether they should exist or not. David Perlett, what say you?
Well, I've had the good and the bad. One of my daughters graduated from a historically black college here at Howard University with a couple majors. I'm in favor of this as being a stepping stone, a transitional point. There's certain benefits to going to a black college, but it's better to move on to a more world view, more well-rounded college, going on to a higher degree.
All right, Dr. DePass, what's the positive about it?
Well, I'm a product of Historic Black College, and
sorry to hear that. No, go ahead. And you've done well.
And for grad school, I applied to go to UVA, and they turned me down. They said,
wow.
They said, well, we'll give you a little stipend to go elsewhere, but we won't accept you here. So the historical black colleges do have connection, a rapport with the black community. Mm-hmm. They do serve the underserved community. But what I'd like to see historical black colleges do is to focus on high-tech training, filling the board. These 2 million jobs that are available, people need to be trained to absorb these jobs. So this is an area that they could move into. But the point is, it does have fallacies. I don't know, the morality at Morehouse, I'm not sure if it's any different from the morality at Ivy League College at Bishop.
You're no doubt correct with that statement. Go ahead.
But the point is, for me, going in a rural environment with going to a segregated school, the historical black college was kind of my only way out. So as a minimum, it enabled me to build a foundation such that I could go into grad school and fill in the gaps along the way and move on to get a decent job.
Well, I think you're a poster child for the positive. I agree. I think they should be supported. I think that they should be viewed as a stepping stone that can make a difference. And I believe that we should move toward pushing that kind of finishing school and then launching pad idea. You've been listening to The Harry Jackson Show. I'm your host, Harry Jackson. Join us tomorrow for Women's Wednesday, and it will be spellbinding in a very positive way.